Hello everyone, my name is Incoherence, and welcome to Terminus Total War Imperium. Now, some of you may recall that we have recently done a series vote, and Attila plus mods was the winner by a very narrow margin, a very small margin. It was actually nearly a three-way tie, which was really interesting for me to watch develop from behind the scenes. It was a nail biter, I tell you that right now. I think that's something that we will perhaps talk about in a different video. All you need to know at the moment is that Attila Total War won, and we are going to be playing this mod. It was a personal choice of mine. None of you really specified what mods you wanted to see, so I'm just kind of taking a shot in the dark here, a wild stab in the dark. I'm hoping that this is going to be interesting, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, I think we ought to just hop right into the campaign, but actually I just want to preface this very quickly by just giving you a forewarning. For those of you who are not familiar with me or my channel, just know this: I am a rambling guy. I talk a lot, especially when I'm beginning a new campaign or a new series. I like to give you all the details. I like to give you all the context around what's going on, especially with this mod as it is an alternate history mod, so I just need to give you the scoop on what the situation is. So if you're not prepared for that, if you're not prepared to listen to me ramble for a good solid 5 minutes about the Gutes, then I suggest you either skip a couple minutes ahead in the video. I suggest you stop the video and come back in a few episodes when we actually do some shit. I suggest you stop the video and leave entirely. Just turn your PC off and go outside and go for a jog, perhaps. I don't know. I would not be offended, honestly, if you guys left. I just wanted to say that. Be prepared for me to talk absolute shit for the next couple minutes. Alright? So, we are going to be, as you can tell, playing as the Gutes. Now, the Gutes, as I've chosen to call them, are actually a nomadic like Viking horde. Essentially, they are part of a Viking invasion, but a couple of hundred years earlier than it happened historically. See, here they are, the Gutish Horde, in the northern part of Britannia Inferior. Now, as I mentioned, this mod is an alternate history mod, so I think we should very quickly talk about the context of our campaign before we go any further. So basically, the way I'm understanding this mod is that it's a alternate timeline where the power of Rome by 395 AD is much more decentralized than it was at this point historically, in the sense that it's almost like the tetrarchy under that Diocletian founded, in the sense that there was two halves of the Roman Empire, and each half had its own Augustus, its own emperor, and its own Caesar, which was like a sub-emperor. So we have Rome proper, led by Flavius Honorius Augustus, so he is the proper emperor, but then we have these sub-factions, these sub-kingdoms, who are all, they're sort of like semi-autonomous in that each of them has its own petty king. For example, Eutropius Gracchus, Pasuvius Varus in Hispania, etc. So each of these guys is like a semi-autonomous king within his own little petty kingdom. Well, it's actually a full-on kingdom. This is essentially Spain. Within his own kingdom, who is still yet subservient to the emperor in Rome. For whatever reason, though, the province of Africa at this point is independent. I'm not sure why. So as I mentioned earlier, we have Gaul, Hispania, Germania, and Britannia. There's also like Illyricum, a few other provinces. Basically, the way they've described this in the logic of the mod is that basically political intrigue, assassinations, and the like have led to a very politically much more unstable empire than the historical one. So that is why power has had to be decentralized. You know, you can't just depend on the emperor himself. You have to have these sort of sub-emperors. Similar sort of story in the East, instead of it being the Eastern Roman Empire, for whatever reason they've decided to call it Byzantium in this mod. And instead of Byzantium having provinces, they instead have themes. So they have the theme of Palestine, Crete, and Egypt. Now, I think Palestine is a puppet of the Byzantines, but the theme of Egypt is actually independent at this point. And it makes sense because, as I understand it, Egypt was actually quite wealthy. So it would make sense that it has rose to prominence, and it is probably the more likely of the regions to seek independence from a sort of weakened Eastern Roman Empire. And there's also other themes like the theme of Macedon, etc., etc. I'm not sure if Crete is a puppet of the Byzantines, but really this is all extra information that we don't really need to get into. I doubt we're going to have to deal with Crete at any point in time. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the mod, not only is it an alternate history mod, but there's also a few select, like wholly unique factions. For example, the Achaean Rebellion is sort of like a resurgence of ancient Greek culture. And as you can see, they're based in Corinthus. Basically, it's Sparta reborn. And I believe there is the Teutons as well. They're sort of a unique faction to the mod. The Gutes, of course, are another unique faction to the mod. I think there is Judea as well, a Jewish horde. And I think there is also the Sabirs. Now, they're not unique to the mod, but I don't think they are actually a playable faction in base Attila. And I think that's essentially it. But yeah, there's just those few standalone factions that seem to be more of a unique playing experience as opposed to any of these, which are more similar to vanilla Attila. But I'm desperately getting off track here. So let's head back to the old Gutes, and we'll take a very brief look at our traits, etc. And then we'll jump into the campaign proper. So, we are going to be playing a very hard campaign. Obviously, starts in 395. Apparently, initial challenge is very hard, so potentially I could get wiped out fucking immediately. I have no idea. Our faction leader is Ragnarr, seen here. He is a Germanic pagan. We have a small blurb as to why it is these Scandinavian peoples chose to leave their homeland. Essentially, it's saying, Sweden sucks. It's cold. And it's much better in the British Isles. You can actually grow shit and whatnot. So apparently, for whatever reason, we've decided to invade their homeland. As for our traits, we have Great Migration, Initiating and Settling. We get a growth bonus. And then Viking Vanguard. We have an income bonus from sacking, looting, and raiding. We have a attack bonus versus Romans. Very helpful considering the Province of Britannia is still alive and kicking. And then, of course, we have a bonus for just a general melee attack bonus. So none of these are exceptional, I don't think. I suppose the attack bonus versus Romans is actually quite good, because then we can carve a new kingdom out of the Roman provinces, like a Gallic Empire almost. Gallic Empire 2.0. The income from sacking, looting, and raiding, yes, that's good, but I'm probably going to settle sooner rather than later. Anyway, we're roughly 10 minutes into the video, and I think we should probably start the campaign already. Good God. And here is Ragnarr, our faction leader and only general. Ragnarr Lothbrok. No, that's not his name. I don't know what his last name is, or his second name is. I think perhaps we'll have to give him one as we play the game. Now, I think it's only logical that we begin with him. However, I want to give you I want to say very briefly that I've actually done a bit of research on the Gutes and who they were, and I should let you know that by research, I mean that I've skimmed a few Wikipedia articles. I skimmed them quite thoroughly. So prepare yourself for some layman's understanding of history, alright? So if I say anything incorrect or otherwise misleading, be kind, alright? I'm just trying to keep things interesting and spread information, but I don't want to have to do too much reading to do it. So as I understand it, the Gutes are the peoples native to the island of Gotland, just off the coast of Sweden. You can see it here sort of shrouded in fog and mystery. Even in modern Swedish, the word Gut and Gutes plural refers to those native peoples of the island of Gotland. So it's somehow survived all these hundreds of years, all these millennia. Now, the reason I'm sort of confused as to, like, I'm sort of perplexed as to why Ragnarr would lead his peoples away from the island of Gotland is that Gotland itself was a very important center for trade. The most important center for trade in the Baltic Sea until the rise of the Hanseatic League. Now, I'm not sure if this is necessarily the case in 400 AD, but apparently this is evident in that they found more silver in the soil of the island of Gotland than the rest of Sweden combined. So if you consider with the rise of the Vikings and the Viking raids, there was more wealth being traded in Gotland than there was being raided from everywhere else. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting that correctly, but I read that and I thought that was interesting. And there's some other facts that I'm going to throw in later, but I think for now let's just look at our good friend Ragnarr. So he is our only general, our general. Now, let's take a look at him proper. Oh gosh, he is actually quite the warrior. He is in fact a warrior king, a shield biter. Grr, the red mist comes, let me at him. Good God, apparently he's some sort of berserker king. He has a wife by the name of Astradir. She is flirtatious, good God. Ooh, we may soon become Ragnarr the Cuck at this rate. He is apparently a steadfast defender, which is just fine. So he is, for all intents and purposes, a great warrior who is unfortunately 40 years old, which means that he's going to die like tomorrow. In the year 400 AD, he's only going to live till 60, probably. Let's take a look at our family tree, actually. Let's get acquainted with the family, and then we'll take a look at the faction proper. So we have Ragnarr and Astradir. Do you pronounce the R, Astradir? I'm not sure. His son is named Vikingr. Is that not like the etymology of the word Viking? It came from Vikingr, which was from Viking, like river. Like rivermen, is that not the etymology of Viking? Is this actually a name? I feel like these are very stereotypical names for, like, Viking dudes. Ragnarr, Vikingr, and Ivar. Okay, let's take a look at Viking. Oh man, that's like naming your son construction worker. It's like naming your son policeman officer. Okay, he is healthy, a confident attacker. He's a leader. Okay, so apparently he too is like some sort of warrior king. He's 20 years old, quite loyal. Wulfgar is our son, second son. He is a looter. Oh gosh, he's got a disfiguring scar. And he apparently is some sort of administrator. Man. Why does he have a disfiguring scar? I sense there's some sort of backstory there that we will have to craft. Ivar has a wonderful golden helmet. Whose helmet is better? Who wore it better? Vikingr or Ivar? I think Vikingr wore it better. Alright, Ivar. He is good looking. Oh my god. And a stranger to fear. And a taskmaster. Okay, so this is actually this is not so great for Wulfgar. Wulfgar is the disfigured middle child. Ivar is the strikingly handsome younger son. And Vikingr is the great warrior. So where does this leave Wulfgar? I'm not sure. It's going to be a rough life for Wulfgar, I feel. Nevertheless, the two older brothers are going to be companions. Ivar is still 16, and he does not yet have enough experience to become a companion. Now, we do have a few other statesmen here. Haraldir, who is bibulous, good in a fight, and a champion rider. We've got Sigar, Rolfir, and Bardir. My gosh. We'll just ignore them for now. I don't think we can glean any additional information here. Germanic paganism gives us an additional slot for recruitment. We have a slight food surplus, and war weariness is currently at 0. Imperium, of course, nothing to be seen there. I think we'll take a look at our... We have no unique victory conditions, my mistake. As for tech, I think we'll start with the old community property. Diplomacy, I think, is going to be very brief. Yes, we only know of 3 factions. The Caledonians, the Picts, and the Province of Britannia. So, they are, in fact, a puppet of Rome. Interesting. Okay, Illyricum, Gaul, Hispania, and Germania are defensive allies. So I suppose as soon as we declare war on Britannia, we're going to have to deal with the combined might of Rome. Yes, the Gutes are not to be confused with the Jutes of Phrygia. Let's just keep that in mind. I think we actually have quite a clean slate here. The Caledonians and the Picts are not at war with anyone. They're not allied with anyone. And the Abdanians, I'm not sure. We haven't met them yet. But I'm sure they're much the same. I think... Man, the Lightning Riders is such a terrible name. We'll have to rename the army at some point. We have a few units of Nordic Levy, 3 units of Axe Warriors, 3 bows, and 3 mounted raiders. So that's 15 units in all, including the Nordic Warlord. And I think that's certainly enough to go raiding about. Now the thing is, I'm not sure exactly where we want to begin. I think it would be best if we were to establish ourselves in Britannia. However, I don't want to go for Eboracum because I feel as if declaring war on the province of Britannia right away, out of the gate, is probably a bad idea. Much the same with Tuesis. I would like to capture the city of Tuesis as to serve as my capital, but the fact that it's a walled city sort of grinds my gears. We're going to have to stand outside the walls forever. We could, in one turn, capture Eildon, but then that leaves us between the two. That is the Caledonians, or sorry, the Picts in the north, and good old Britannia in the south. So my first inclination is that we should sail across the ocean wide. The ocean's blue, and take out the Irish in Abdanians. We should subjugate the Irish. Look at that, we're English already. That way we can sort of have a more defensible position in that we will be the sole survivors on the Isle of Ireland, I suppose. And we can cross actually in one turn. I think what we ought to do though is raid our way over there. Will that piss off the Caledonians? For sure, it certainly will. Now, I would, in fact, like to get some gold so that when the time comes and we do settle, we will have a bit of gold to fall back on to build and rebuild. Now, we could sack Eildon in order to accomplish this, but we will have to fight quite the battle. I think we can actually... We can go for the town itself because, unfortunately for them, it's actually quite undefended at the moment. Thirsty for battle. I would like some more units too, so here's what we can do. We can sack Eildon, use the funds to strengthen our army. Do we need 15 units plus 6? Yeah, we're already outnumbered by the old Caledonians here. Let's see. Shit, do we really want to do this? Or alternatively, we can just raid in Ireland. Let's do that. Let's begin raiding. That is netting us like 0 fucking gold. That's hardly worth it. Okay, we'll just head to Ireland straight up. We'll recruit a few more units. We've met the Abdanians. Let's just make sure they're not allied with anyone. And by doing that, we can ensure... Yes, okay, so we are clear for takeoff. Apparently the Abdanians dislike Western Romans, and they hate rival empires, so they would actually be a good ally. Unfortunately for them, they're in a great place to live, so we're going to have to... Oh, I fucked that up. I wanted to recruit some units, but unfortunately I can't. So we're going to end the turn here, and we should have time for another turn or two before we end the video. Alright, we've been given a mission to form the Kingdom of the Gutes. Carve out a kingdom and assert yourself as rightful ruler of the Gute peoples. Are we not the rightful ruler as is? Just like a homeless peoples? Alright, we have to own 9 regions. I feel as if it's going to be the British Isles and, yeah, Northern Gaul. Even possibly Denmark would do. And this would obviously give us all sorts of bonuses. Yeah, a bunch of bonuses when we form the island. Oh god, form the kingdom, rather. Political obstruction. We are going to... he's going to use some of his influence to become a companion. There we go. Alright, let's see. We can cross whatever strait this is. I'm sure there's a name for it. And recruit some units. Now, see, the reason I didn't really want to attack the Caledonians is that I worry that we would be too weak afterwards to fend off their counterattack, A, and capture Eblana, B. Although, looking at it, there are going to be quite a few dudes in Eblana that we're going to have to deal with. So I want, I think, a few javelin units and a spear unit. As for buildings, we didn't really look at that because my god, what am I doing? Because I intend to settle incredibly quickly, so there's no point in blowing a couple thousand gold on these tents and shit when we're just gonna capture Eblana. So we'll recruit, I think we actually have another slot, even. No, my mistake. Okay, we'll recruit these guys. We'll look at mercenaries, perhaps? I feel as if mercenaries run counter to my whole saving up gold plan. So we'll just stick with the levies for now. That will give us 18 units next turn. There are going to be, what, 17 in this army? 7 here, that's 20-something, plus the garrison in Eblana. So it's going to be a few battles, at least 2, I think, until we can... well, actually, we might be able to destroy this entire army with one strong blow. However, I feel that trying to fight the men in the town is a bit that's a bit overconfident, I think. So what we'll have to do is bait them out of the town and then destroy them in the field and destroy the remnants afterwards. So I think we'll go for cap 20 units and we'll start raiding, and hopefully that will cause the Abdanians to march out. If not, we can get fat on their gold, on their food, possibly their women. I'm not sure how you get fat on women. That's like that's a train of thought that I think we best not go down right now. Once we capture Eblana and begin the Kingdom of the Gutes, then of course I think it would be a good move to sail up to Tuesis perhaps, and take out the Picts, and then just sort of roll all the way down the coast towards the Britons. Now, some of you may be wondering why we're not raiding more as opposed to settling right away. I just find that Attila does not really... Oh shit, we've already... How has this happened? We've already increased our Imperium, but that's just fine. Attila does not really simulate how effective the Vikings were as raiders, because above all else they were incredibly mobile, much like the horseback riders of the steppes. Just incredibly mobile because they were able to sail up and down rivers to escape their foe, which is not necessarily true in Total War. You can sail up and down the rivers in Attila, but the whole mobility aspect is sort of negated by the turn-based aspect of the game. Okay, so we've got 17 units here versus our 18. Let's see, how far can we get? Okay, so about here is where we want to be. We cannot recruit while we're raiding, no. So we have 6 spear units. I think, do we want spear units or do we want? I wish I had some sort of spy unit, some agents of some kind. But I don't yet, so we'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. That didn't work at all. Okay, let's just... Of course it didn't work. I didn't expect it to work. I do like javelin units. So I think we'll get at least one. So, it's for that reason that I am trying to settle rather than raid. I just don't find raiding that useful unless, of course, you are a nomadic, like a horse nomad faction. In which case you're able to ride away from everyone. I'm not sure if there was anything I should have been doing. Maybe on the family tree screen. I wasn't really paying attention, but we are recruiting units now. I think we'll start raiding and see if that causes the old Irish here to leave their town. I really don't think it will. They will probably want to defend the town itself rather than march out to meet me. In which case, of course, we'll have to try to dislodge them somehow. And by dislodge, I mean just wipe them out entirely. And it's winter, which is actually quite horrid for us. But it's pretty bad for them as well. Okay, so... what is the extent of their movement, I wonder? I would like for them to have to spend quite a bit of move. I was thinking I would like to have them spend at least one turn in transit so I know they're coming, but I don't think that's particularly possible. So we'll just move for now, taking those casualties, of course. And we could... do we need to recoup those losses? Not at all. Okay, we will, we'll raid. And... apparently that we're still going to get attrition from raiding, so we're going to have to camp out. We're currently at 6,000 gold. Only making 500 a turn, though, which is quite sad. But that's all we need for now. Like I said, I would like at least 10,000. Okay, this plan has actually worked. The Abdanians marched right out to meet me. I didn't even raid yet. In fact, they marched out to take casualties, as in they marched with attrition to meet me, whereas I've just recouped my losses. So this is somehow the best outcome I ever could have asked for, and somehow I just kind of stumbled into it. Oh my god. Marcus Cincinnatus Britannicus, welcome to the tent of Earl Ragnarr. Well, he doesn't actually have a title at this point, so welcome to the tent of Ragnarr. How about you take your demands and shove them up your ass, you piece of filth? Marcus Cincinnatus Britannicus. We don't need to pay you any money, you asshole. Please leave. Okay, so this has set us up perfectly for episode number 2. We're gonna have to destroy the Abdanians. It's on the coast as well, which is particularly scenic. We can slaughter Irishmen and then look over our shoulder and see the most beautiful of sunsets, or sunrises perhaps, depending on when the battle is fought. Look at this, an illegitimate birth already. Wulfgar has knocked up Joran, and they've named the kid Erfridir, which is actually not a bad name at all. I actually like that. Let's see. Let's head to the old family tree. There he is. Oh, that's a... I should have known that's actually a daughter. That's a female name. Erfridir. Okay, well, that's Wulfgar. Interestingly enough, Wulfgar, the disfigured mutant, the first one to get laid at 19. Who would have thought? Okay, we have a bit of a... I don't think we want to utilize this. Well, do we? Armor negative 15% for a melee attack bonus? I'm not sure. Okay, we have unlocked a hunter's camp. I think it is about time that we reduce our upkeep for melee infantry units. Now, let's take a look at the Irish army. They have 24 units of varying quality, I'm sure. versus our 20 fully rested men. It seems to me that they, in fact, did not take any attrition, which is bizarre. I'm not sure if...
Thirsty for battle.
If they are, in fact, in a encamped status or not. And we can't actually attack them because we are encamped. Can we... Okay, there we are. For some reason, I assumed that it would just automatically move me out of that stance, but there we go. An army led by Duratius and Vicinius. Okay, let's declare war on these assholes. They have no allies, and that's just fine. We have no allies of our own. And there it is. They have basically a shit tier army. They actually have a catapult, which is very incredibly annoying. But it looks to me that we can easily get the cavalry advantage, rather, because they have missile cav, which could actually be quite annoying. They have a few units of skirmishers, a few units of archers, and then mostly spearmen, which is just fine, and the shitty Celtic band, which we can take care of. I'm fairly certain my Nordic axe warriors can cut through all of these guys and more. It's the onager we'll have to take out with the cav. The cav will have to bait into some sort of jab situation, I'm sure. But there you have it. It is their 33, nearly 3,400 men versus our just shy of 3,000. So they do, in fact, have a slight manpower advantage. But there you go. This is the beginning of the Gut campaign, and I think we're off to a fucking roaring start with the upcoming capture of Ireland, I'm sure. We could, of course, lose this battle, which would be incredibly embarrassing. I never know. You never know if that's gonna come. Now, as this is the first episode of the series, I just want to say that you should leave a like, leave a comment for sure if you like the series, because I am, in fact, going to be monitoring the feedback. I'm looking for like 10% of the subscriber base in views, so that's roughly 300. 10% of views in likes, so that would be 30. And then, I don't know, 10% of the likes in comments. I'm not really too worried about the comments, in fact, because that would be like 3 comments, which I'm pretty sure we can achieve. But of course, if we don't get enough feedback, we'll move on to another game, another series, etc., etc. But I think you all know this, so I will say thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this series. If you did, you know what to do. As always, my name is Incoherence. This has been the first episode of our Guts campaign in, what's the name of the mod? Oh god, Terminus Total War Imperium. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later.